I am on a journey to finish the Bible as a whole. But you can't finish the Bible and reveal what God is trying to say if you don't start from the beginning. So it all starts with the book of Genesis. Hey! What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another reinstatement of the canon, where we investigate the Bible not just as a guide to how we should live our lives, but as a story as a whole, as a canon. Anyway, today we are studying Genesis chapter 2, where we're going to be introducing 3 new main points to what has been going on so far in the story. Those 3 details being: 1, the day that God rested; 2, more details and information on the Garden of Eden; and 3, the potential of a new character / gender being introduced within this chapter. Our first order of business is to figure out what day did the creator of the universe decide to rest from all his work. We can find the answer to that in Genesis chapter 2 verses 1 through 3. Where he mentions that the day of rest is the 7th day. And he doesn't just mention that once, but he mentions it twice in verse 2 of Genesis chapter 2, and a third time in verse 3. Before we get into the background information of what this garden was called, it gives us some characteristics of how the garden actually functioned. And we can see that the garden did not get any rain. Rain was not a thing. Instead, it said that there was a mist that watered the ground. There went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. In a way, there was an irrigation system in place. So we had water coming from the ground to water the ground. Ooh, that's smart. And so the location of this certain garden was found eastward, and in the middle of the garden was found a specific tree called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And from this location were 4 rivers that split off from the main outlet. I'll put a description of each river. You can pause and go ahead and digest that, because that would be too long for the video. But that is what we learn of this certain location. But the main question is, what is this so-called location's name? So now we enter phase 3 of the creation of humankind, or aka mankind, in which we see the process of how a human being is being formed for the first time in recorded history. We find ourselves in Genesis 2 verse 7, where we find that God creates man from the dust of the ground, but that wasn't enough. He formed him, meaning there was shape, there was something going on. But the final ingredient required to bring this being to life was the breath of life. And then the man became a living soul, a living entity, a complete being. So after mankind is done being formed and is now a living entity, we're given some housekeeping rules. And our first assignment within this location, it's to keep the garden, to make sure that we take care of the place that we're in, and we could eat from the different trees that are located around the garden, except from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For in the day that we ate of it, we would die. So that was our first important housekeeping rule and our first assignment. Later on, in verses 19 through 20, we're given a new assignment, which is to name all the creatures of the planet, the ones in the sky, the ones within the seas and oceans, and the ones on land as well. But we have one very important thing that we learn about our new character. That being the name of our new character. So we have a lot of naming going on within this book. Bro, you keep saying that there's so much naming going on, but I haven't gotten any names. What are you doing? Don't worry, we'll get to that. Just wait. Firstly, what is the name of the location that we have been placed in? And we can find the answer to that in Genesis chapter 2, verse 8, where it says, "And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had 4. So we can see the location of this place is called the Garden of Eden. And now we're introduced to our female character, in which her story of how she comes about is very fascinating. So now we need to figure out the name of this new gender that was unlocked. And we find that in Genesis chapter 2, verse 20 through 25, in which verse 20, God sees Adam and he's like, bro's working hard out here, but yet he has nobody to help him out. He's all alone. So in verse 21, God puts Adam into a deep slumber, takes one of his ribs, and does the first ever surgery in human history. In verse 22, it shows that God brings this rib, this so-called new female, to Adam, and then Adam sees her and is like, oh wow. Nice. You will be called woman because you came out of man. Very original, Adam. But that's what Adam does. And in verse 24 to 25 goes over a new concept. The concept of marriage, in which a man would leave his immediate family to create a new one. But a very, very key ingredient for that to happen is that God needs to be introduced into the equation. Adam didn't go looking for a woman. Facts. And a woman didn't go looking for Adam. God brought them together. And without God, the perfect equation for marriage cannot exist. Though we know a new gender has been unlocked, we know females have been introduced into the equation, we still don't know the name of this particular female. And do we get to find out in this chapter? Guess what? No, we don't. No, we don't. We have to wait for another chapter to drop until we're able to learn the name of this female. That's crazy. That's crazy. And that's where Genesis chapter 2 ends. Thanks once again, guys, for watching towards the end of another video, episode 2 done. But I can't leave you guys hanging. Now it's time for questions. I was looking forward to seeing the answers of questions in the comments and in the Insta, but I haven't seen that yet. I'm still hoping. But the questions for this video are: what are the 4 rivers that come out from the Garden of Eden? What verse in chapter 2 is the name Eden mentioned? And our third and final question: what comprises a living soul? And give me the verse. Enemies, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget, we're not living a fantasy. We're living a canon. Until next time.